This is a Tesla Model 3, and if you're someone that's even just a little bit curious about this kind of car, you might want to keep watching this video. If you're somebody that has questions about things like range and charging and what kind of factors those are in your daily drive, you might want to keep watching this video. If you're somebody like me that has never been in one of these cars, you drive gasoline engine vehicles like I do, but you're just curious to know what all the hype is about, you might want to keep watching this video. If you're considering buying an EV and you want to know what things to look at before you make that purchase and some key components to evaluate before making your buying decision, you might want to keep watching this video. All right, so we've already established this is a Tesla Model 3. It's a 2018 model, and it has the dual motor. There's some various configurations that you can look at when you're considering buying one, but this particular model has the dual motor. I really liked it a lot. We'll get into the reasons why later in the video, but I just wanted to explain for a minute what the concept was behind this video. I literally tried to screw this up. I knew very little about these Teslas before I got in this car, and I wanted to present that perspective throughout the video so that my experiences could be your experiences. Things that I didn't understand, I talked about. Things that I learned, I talked about. And things that made sense to me along the way and that Tesla got right from an ease of use perspective, I talked about. So watch me from a dummy's perspective take you through this Tesla. We have just gotten into this Tesla Model 3, and this is literally my first time in a car like this, in any Tesla. And from someone that has never experienced this, I thought I would give you my perspective on that. So just some initial observations. And one of the first things I will tell you is it's very well thought out. It's very intuitive. I don't have to search or hunt too long to figure out how to work something. And a lot of that is due to this large control console right here in the front, which just kind of tells me what I need to be doing, or I can find the setting that I need.
Now turn right onto Gallatin Avenue.
I've familiarized myself somewhat with the Tesla line by just watching videos and reading, but this is my first foray into actually operating one. So I wanted to do this from the perspective of someone that hasn't any pre-existing knowledge. One thing that I've got to figure out, I don't mind it, but I know that a lot of people will, is the settings right now are so torquey that when I let off the gas, when I take my foot off the gas, it literally will jerk. And I believe that's a regenerative braking setting, and I believe you can turn that off or turn it down. You'll lose a little bit of your battery recovery, but if it's a comfort thing, that's something that initially, I feel like I'm driving a go-kart. It's even torquier than a Mini Cooper. I've never seen this before, but the blind spot detection feature of a car, this actually shows me images of what this car thinks is around me, and that's an intersection in front of me with cross traffic. Look up and you'll get a shot of that. And you can see that as the cars go past, it's actually showing me that there are cars in the intersection. So probably the best I've ever seen in terms of vehicle detection around me. Something else that I'm a fan of that our Lexus has, this car has also, is when you stop the car, you can take your foot off the brake and the car will stay stopped. So there's no need sitting in traffic to sit there and keep your foot pressed on the brake the whole time. It's a really nice feature for comfort. All right, so something that is really nice from the perspective of trying to learn the vehicle is there is an owner's manual built in to the actual car center console, to the display. And you can get into that right there. And it's got all your settings that you might need to learn quickly at a glance. Okay. We've all heard about the amount of torque and the insane acceleration that these cars have, but just to prove that it's legit, this thing will literally pin you to the seat when you stomp on the pedal. I mean, holy smokes. That is insane. I've never driven anything with that much power before. The torque is just, it's giggly. It's so strong. Let's talk about performance and handling for just a minute. There is no doubt I'm driving a luxury car when I'm driving this Model 3, and that is evident from the handling, from the quietness of the ride, the smoothness of the ride. You can adjust some of the steering sensitivity and sport mode and comfort mode and that sort of thing. So you have the ability to put it into a little bit more of an aggressive behavior. But from the perspective of how the car handles, it handles well. It's a little stiff. So I'm comparing this to maybe a Lexus ES or a BMW 3 Series or something else in the mid-range luxury class, and the steering feel is a little numb. You don't quite feel as much as the road as you do in some of those other vehicles that I've mentioned. It's not a bad thing, and unless you necessarily want that, unless you want that real aggressive sport personality, it's okay. Because what this car doesn't have in track capability, it makes up for in all the creature comforts, and it does a great job of getting you to your destination in a comfortable way. All right, it's time to get into something that is a pretty big differentiator in terms of what makes this car special, and that's its power source. And you can see here in this picture, I've got it plugged in. When I started this project, I intentionally set out to discover as I went, meaning I didn't do any research on charging stations or power supplies or anything once I knew that I was gonna test drive this car. I knew what I knew beforehand, and I just refused to do any research because I felt like it would be a realistic learning experience to document this on the fly and then show the viewers what factors were surprising to me and what things were unexpected, and just the overall difficulty. And I gotta say that probably the biggest surprise for me in this whole Tesla experience was charging is way more readily available than I ever thought it would be. You can see right here I'm plugged into a Whole Foods. This particular one didn't even pun not intended, they didn't even charge me to charge, right? So you just plug in and fuel up while you're shopping. So there were some nice discoveries there. Something that I learned is that you can pull open Google Maps, say on your smartphone, and just type in charging stations, and there's so many that just show up. Now, Teslas have charging stations marked on their own navigation system, and a lot of those are Tesla branded chargers, or what they call superchargers, which are very fast chargers. And the vehicle's navigation system will help you find those. What I wanted to do was just to see how usable an EV or an electric vehicle was in my area without any advanced knowledge of where these charging locations were. All right, so I'm going to apologize for this next clip. I forgot to attach my wireless lapel mic right before we did this next bit, but I can narrate this for you. What we were doing here was there's a parking garage not too far from my home, and I had remembered seeing some charging stations in there before. I knew they weren't Tesla branded, and I just wanted to go up and see, could this car charge itself, or could I charge it with what it came with? And there were a couple adapters in the front area they called the front trunk, and I just wanted to see if I could make it work. I wanted to see how difficult it was, and just wanted to learn a little bit about how long this took and how hard it was to figure out, etc. So here we go. So basically, this is the charging area. It's similar to a fuel door. You can open this from inside the vehicle, and it's got kind of a round plug connector. The connector on the cable on the wall has a different fitting. So my first obstacle was to figure out how to make those work. Now this is a Blink charging station. You can see that, and here is their charger, which has, I want to say it's 5 different connection points. Yeah, it's 5 different connection points inside. The Tesla, as you'll see here in a second, has 3. So our first challenge was to figure out how to make the plug-in work with the Tesla. And we happened to go through a little bag that the car came with, and it had an adapter in the front trunk, and I'll take you to that now. All right, so here we've got several different cables. This is looks like a 50 amp adapter, so that's not going to work. It's for a wall type receptacle. This is a 110 adapter. I've been told those are pretty awful. You don't want to waste your time with them, they're too slow. But if you look in this bag here, I found this, which looks like it has the right number of adapters, because it's got the Tesla end here, and that's the Blink. So we're going to go back to the charging plug now and see if we can get it to plug in. Alright, so here we've got our adapter that we found in the front. This is the Blink cable right here. And I can see that it's got a tab that matches up. Looks like it's going to plug right in there and lock. Okay. And then this end right here is going to go. Y'all can make fun of me for not knowing how to open that. Right into there, and we've got a connection. This is a picture of the display screen on that Blink wall charger you saw just a few seconds ago, and you can see here the rate is 3 cents per 30 seconds. We actually worked the math out on that, and it's in the neighborhood of about $8 to completely refuel the vehicle. It's just ridiculously cheap, and compare that to going 300 miles in a gasoline engine, and it's almost laughable how cheap it is to fill these things up. The process is really simple. I figured it out. I've never done it before. I didn't have a Blink account. And I would liken this process to kind of paying for gas at a gas station with a credit card. There's a couple more steps. If you've never paid before, you've got to use a smartphone and enter in your information. I don't think you have to create an account, but you have to put in your credit card number, and you can see that on this screen. So it'll let you save this information and register, as you can see up there on the top right, but you don't have to. You can just make a one-time payment, plug the thing in, and walk away. Probably the biggest difference in refueling an EV like this Tesla and refueling a traditional gasoline or a diesel engine is the time it takes. And I think everybody knows that. The cost is just so nominal compared to traditional gasoline engines. But I found myself thinking more about topping the vehicle off to deal with that time factor. In other words, almost like treating it like a smartphone, right? So you don't wait until it's empty to charge it up. You plug in when you get in your car, right? If it's your smartphone. Well, it's the same thing with this. If you go somewhere and there's a charging station like this parking garage, you would just plug in. And you sort of deal proactively with the charging issue, which is it's a different mindset than a gasoline vehicle. You sort of have to think backwards, if you will. You have to get yourself used to that, but it really wasn't a big deal. And, you know, honestly, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but it's totally possible to own one of these vehicles, not have the wiring in your home or your garage to charge them, and just charge them as you drive them. Just go different places and charge them. The trade-off there is going to be, again, time. You're not going to be able to plug the car in when you're home and go to bed. You're going to park it somewhere for 30 minutes and have to go do something, whether that's do work at a coffee shop or get something to eat or whatever. But you're trading your time kind of for the process and the lesser expense of refueling. This is the best explanation I can give to someone like me who has never driven a Tesla before, and I'm not sure if this is true of quiet navigation lady. I'm not sure if this is true of other electric vehicles or just Tesla, but it's a lot like driving a go-kart in terms of nothing happens, and it's a little mind-boggling. It's like a go-kart with insane horsepower. It's just crazy torque. But if you think about, you get in a go-kart, you step on the pedal, and you go. It's the same. While we're on the topic of energy recovery with the brakes and the braking feature and all that, something that I'm kind of learning it's kind of cool is with a gasoline vehicle with an internal combustion engine, you take your foot off the gas, and you're essentially you're coasting, you're rolling, and you're going to continue that forward momentum for a pretty good amount of time on a level surface. With this vehicle, as soon as you take your foot off the gas, but before you touch the brakes, the braking begins. So it's a mental trick, so to speak, that you learn quickly, but you start to factor that into your stop. You just take your foot off the gas, and I've never even touched the brake, and from about 35 miles an hour, I can stop in 30 or 40 feet just by doing that. It stops you pretty quickly. Let off the gas. You get a visual of that regenerative braking, which I will probably never be able to say correctly. This particular Model 3 has the glass roof, and it's unique, I'll give it that. I don't know that I would personally order one. I would rather have a sunroof or a moonroof or something that opens. This one doesn't open. So if you like that panoramic thing, and I don't know why you would be staring up a lot, but it's kind of I guess it's a style preference. It's not for everybody. The back seat it's pretty roomy. I'm about 6 feet tall, and for two adults in the back seat, you're not going to have any issues. My biggest complaint with this seat is not necessarily the leg room, which might be surprising, but it's the angle of the backrest, and they're doing that to try to get more space in the hatch or the trunk. So they've got you sitting a little bit more upright. It's not bad, but it just makes it difficult to kind of lean back and have a little snoozle. Kind of have to sit up at a little bit of an uncomfortable angle. If you're not going to take long trips, it's not a factor. It's plenty of room for the feet. If you've got kids riding in the back seat, it's not going to be an issue at all. Sometimes backup cameras aren't well thought out from the standpoint of inclement weather being a factor. This one does a very good job in the rain. You can see there, you can see the rain, and you can see that it's raining, but it deals with the moisture well enough that it's still usable in the rain, which is very nice. We're in a little bit of traffic here. When we get out of that, we're going to try to test the Autopilot system. So I don't know if this is capable or not, if this is a feature that's possible, but something that I can tell you right now is that there isn't any live traffic going on this display, and we are in traffic. Now that might be a setting we can turn on. Again, I've familiarized myself somewhat with the Tesla line by just watching videos and reading, but this is my first foray into actually operating one. So I wanted to do this from the perspective of someone that hasn't any pre-existing knowledge. Of course, no sooner did I make some comment about live traffic not working than I went into the settings and found the actual live traffic setting and was able to turn it on. So it is there. Wanted to show you this just to show you how the autopilot works. What I did is I went into the nav system, set an address, set a destination address, and then I drove. I got on the interstate. I turned on cruise control. As you can see there in the top left area of the screen, there's a blue icon with a white steering wheel. So I had cruise control turned on, and then I just tapped the navigate on autopilot button, and it was pretty cool. It just kind of took over, and it suggested lane changes to get there more quickly and so on. And you can also see the sort of vehicle awareness, the surroundings awareness there on the screen. It checks and makes sure that there's not something in the lane before it attempts to change lanes, and it's also showing you how it visualizes those lanes. So it's actually a pretty cool, pretty usable feature, just as long as you remember to relax your hands down towards the bottom of the steering wheel when it's turned on. You can see here the vehicle awareness system in terms of the vehicles surrounding you. And it does check to make sure before you do a lane change that it's clear. But you can see there I just pulled the turn stick down and the lane change was indicated on the icon there on the screen. You can see there it is again. And there is a message that will pop up to tell you a faster route is available, and it'll suggest lane changes for you, and you have to confirm that, but it's out there. Here's an observation with the autopilot. If you put too much of a struggle up, if you take the wheel and kind of strong it, it's a little sensitive from the standpoint of it will then turn the steering assist or autopilot or whatever they call it back off. So it's gonna be sensitive to that. You're gonna have to pay attention to that. If you're in the habit of sort of sitting down here, which is I think what Tesla wants you to do, you'll be fine. But if you're gonna keep your hands up here at 10 and 2, it's pretty easy to turn that steering assist off just by moving the wheel. After driving this car for a day, learning a little bit about the power requirements, where you can charge it, what kind of plugins it takes, and that sort of thing, and getting some time to experience kind of what it's capable of from a handling standpoint, from a comfort standpoint, this is, in my opinion, is a great commuter car if you're the kind of person that doesn't travel more than 100 to 150 miles round trip per day to work with errands. When you get close to the 200 miles per day, it's going to start to be a factor. You're going to have to start thinking about, even though it might have a little bit of range left, where can I plug in midday? But if you can take it home and you have a charging system set up at home with something more than a 110 charger, you'll do just fine. It's a great commuter vehicle. It's not a great trip vehicle for those reasons, in my opinion, because I'm not somebody that likes to kill an hour waiting for my car to charge in the middle of a trip. Some closing thoughts for you here as we look at a picture of the side camera on the driver's side door, which is also it's one of the ways you can open the car. Tesla gives you some credit card type keys. They look like credit cards, and you just hold that right up to that camera and it unlocks the door. So that just goes to speak to kind of how Tesla does things. Everything is kind of well thought out. It's convenient. They give you, in many cases, multiple ways to do things. And it really adds to kind of the cool factor. If you're going to buy one of these Model 3s, I highly recommend you get the dual motor. After driving it, I understand that it gives you a little bit of increased range and performance, and it's worth the extra money for sure, if for nothing else than just to get that extra range. So consider that. And would also say, from a design standpoint, on the inside, it's very well thought out. It's a very good use of space. It's comfortable. It's
easy to use. It's easy to do things like turn the climate control and the heated seats and the heated steering wheels on before you get in your car to have it warmed up for you. I am not a fan of the exterior design so much. Now, that's a very personal thing, and a lot of people do like it. It's just not my cup of tea, but it would not deter me from buying one of these vehicles. It's that good, and hopefully that says a lot to you, that even though I'm maybe less of a fan of Tesla's design on the exterior, the car is so impressive that for a daily commuter, for a daily driver, this would absolutely be a car that I would put on my list to look at for my next purchase. And this brings us, just about to the end of the Model 3 review. So I hope you've enjoyed it, everybody. I hope it's been helpful. And I would ask that you hit that subscribe button, help us get to our 1,000 viewer goal on YouTube. It would be a tremendous help to us. Thank you for watching. And look for more videos and our podcast on partscounterguru.com. Thanks, everybody.